Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have Odette and Nancy from the IRS. They have partnered with us here at SCORE to share a lot of great information with you today. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you're just joining, this is part 2. You do not have to have attended the first session to benefit from this session. You can, of course, go back and watch the first session, and we will be sharing the recording and the handout with you today. There'll be a follow-up email, and I will include the recording from the first session just in case you missed that one. I just do want to begin really quickly and just explain what SCORE does, and then we'll turn it over to our presenters. SCORE does offer training to those that are on training for small business topics. Every topic you can imagine related to small business. Most of them are webinars. There are a few in-person workshops, and I definitely encourage you to check out our website or to watch for the newsletter. The most important thing that SCORE does, however, is the mentoring, and the mentors are volunteers, and mentoring is therefore always free, and it is confidential. Our mentors have a variety of experiences and knowledge that they're looking to share with small business owners and those that are just getting started. We definitely work with folks that are trying to evaluate whether small business ownership is for them. We work with folks that are in that planning stage, and we work with those that are already in business. Sometimes they need help with a growth strategy or marketing or financing or any topic you can imagine. And we work with everyone in every step of the way. You do not have to have a business license to come see someone at SCORE. If you are interested in meeting with someone, I encourage you to go to the score.org website. And there's a big old nice box that says for you to type in your zip code, and they will connect you to the chapter in your area. Or you can put a note in chat, and I'll make sure someone reaches out to you. So we are going to use Q&A to keep track of questions. It's just easier. So if you have a question for one of our presenters and can throw it in Q&A, that is beneficial to us. Sometimes things can get lost in chat, but we will try our best to watch for questions in there as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Odette and Nancy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nancy Feliciano, and here with me is my colleague, Odette Turin. We are both with the IRS Stakeholder Liaison office. So thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you. Next slide, Odette. So here's our contact information from myself and Odette. Actually located in Hartford, Connecticut, and Odette is in Warwick, Rhode Island. So both myself and Odette are available to assist you. So please feel free to reach out to any one of us. So let's take a look at the topics that we plan on discussing today. Next slide. So on our agenda here, we are going to be talking a little bit about choosing a tax preparer, also identity theft for individuals and businesses. We're going to be talking a little bit about the gig economy, small business resources, and multilingual resources and services that are available to you. So please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. You can put them in the chat. So let's begin with some information on choosing a tax return preparer. And I'm going to turn it over to Odette to cover that topic. Odette?
Thank you, Nancy, and good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to be talking a little bit about choosing a tax return preparer, and this is important anytime during the year in getting some information on tips on choosing a tax professional. So when you consider choosing a tax return preparer, it's important to note that different types of preparers have different skills, education, and expertise. And another important difference is a return preparer's ability to represent taxpayers before the Internal Revenue Service. So there are two types of representation rights, also known as practice rights, that a return preparer can have with the IRS. And those two types are unlimited and limited representation. So it's basically, what can that return preparer do on your behalf when they interact with the IRS? So the first type is unlimited representation rights. So if a return preparer has that right, then they can represent clients on any matters with the IRS. That includes audits, payment issues, collection issues, appeals, all of our different divisions if they had unlimited representation rights. So these preparers are what we call credentialed return preparers because they have some sort of a credential, like a CPA or an enrolled agent or an attorney. Then that other type is those return preparers that have limited representation rights. Those types of preparers can only represent clients on whose returns they prepared and signed. They can only represent a taxpayer when dealing with certain divisions within IRS, not all the divisions, but divisions that would include examination, like with our revenue agents, customer service representatives, and similar IRS employees, including the taxpayer advocate service. So those with limited representation rights can only represent clients on whose returns they prepared and signed. So that's really an important distinction. So we have credentialed return preparers. As I mentioned, they have unlimited representation rights. They include those attorneys, CPAs, enrolled agents. All return preparers, whether they're credentialed or non-credentialed, they all must have a preparer tax identification number, or PTIN, issued by the IRS, and that's renewed each year. And they must sign the return that they prepare for you. And that applies to all return preparers. So there are two types of non-credentialed return preparers. That's the other type. So those are not your CPAs or your enrolled agents or your attorneys. So the first type of a non-credentialed is what we call an annual filing season program record of completion holder. And the second type is a preparer that doesn't have that. So that annual filing season program holder, they have limited representation rights. So they don't have as much as our credentialed return preparers. They can only represent clients on whose returns they prepared and signed. And they can only represent a client before limited functions within IRS, like exam and customer service and taxpayer advocate. They have to participate in that annual filing season program that's with the IRS in both the year that they prepare the client's return and the year they represent the client. And they must obtain a certain number of continuing education hours for a specific year, and that's governed by the IRS. And of course, they also need that PTIN. Now, a non-credentialed return preparer that doesn't participate in that annual filing season program that is like a continuing education program with IRS, they can prepare returns and file federal tax returns, but they cannot represent clients before the IRS. So that's a big distinction. And as with all paid tax return preparers, they must also have that PTIN, that preparer tax identification number. It's important to check the preparer's qualifications when you're looking for a return preparer. The IRS does have right on our website, it's a directory of federal tax return preparers with credentials and select qualifications. So this online tool is available to anyone right on irs.gov. It can help you find a tax return preparer with specific qualifications. If you say, gee, I think I really need a CPA, and the directory is a searchable and sortable list of preparers. And again, it's on irs.gov. You can just search tax return preparer directory, and you'll be able to find that. So here are some important reminders when you have a tax return preparer. Never sign a blank return. You should not use a tax return preparer who asks them to sign a blank tax form. You should never do that. You are responsible for that form, so you should be looking at it completed. Review the return before signing it. Ask questions if something isn't clear. You should also make sure that any refund that you have goes directly to you, the taxpayer, not to the preparer's bank account. You want to review the routing and bank account number on the completed return to make sure that it is coming to you. And also remember, every taxpayer is legally responsible for all the information that's entered on a tax return, regardless of who prepares it. Also, you want to make sure that the preparer signs the return and includes their PTIN, that preparer tax identification number. All paid tax return preparers must have a PTIN. And by law, A paid preparer must sign the return and include their PTIN on the return that they file with the IRS. The preparer must also provide the taxpayer with a copy of that return. So that's important to note as well. So taxpayers should avoid unethical tax return preparers, and many are what we call ghost preparers. A ghost preparer is someone who does not sign the tax return they prepare. Unscrupulous ghost preparers often print the return and have the taxpayer sign and mail it to the IRS. For e-filed returns, the ghost preparer will prepare the return, but they'll refuse to digitally sign it as a paid preparer. So by law, anyone who is who's paid to prepare or assist in preparing a federal tax return must have that valid PTIN, that preparer tax identification number. They have to include it on the return. They must sign on the return as well. So not signing a return is a red flag that the paid preparer may be looking to make a quick profit by maybe promising a big refund or charging fees based on the size of the refund. So those should be red flags that go right off. Ghost tax return preparers, they may also require payment in cash only and not give you a receipt. They might invent income to qualify their clients for tax credits that they may not be entitled to. They may claim fake deductions to boost the size of the refund. And another clear red flag is they could have direct refunds that go into their bank account and not the taxpayer's account. So really important for taxpayers to choose their tax return preparer wisely. If you do suspect that you have encountered an abusive tax return preparer, please report it to the IRS. You can use IRS Form 14157, which is a complaint for a tax return preparer. So you should do that. A good resource to get information on how to choose a tax professional is on irs.gov. So the webpage on irs.gov is Need Someone to Prepare Your Tax Return. It's really helpful, includes a lot of great information. What kind of tax preparer do I need? How can I check a tax preparer's credentials? Like I mentioned, that return preparer directory that we have. What if I have a complaint about a taxpayer? And it also has a useful YouTube video link on how to use that tax return preparer directory if you're looking for a tax return preparer. Okay, so we went through a lot of information, and now we're going to move on and we're going to look at some information concerning tax-related identity theft, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Nancy. So Nancy, over to you.
Thank you, Odette. Let's keep going. I want to share with you some information about how to take extra steps to protect your financial and tax information from identity thieves that want to use your information to try to file fraudulent tax returns and steal your refunds. So we're going to be talking first about individuals, and then we talk about business and identity theft. Thank you. So fighting fraud has been a continuous activity for the IRS, primarily because scammers evolve as technology evolves. So we focus on prevention, and we're constantly working with our partners to provide information that helps taxpayers recognize and avoid scams. So tax-related identity theft scams started out as a petty crime perpetrated by unorganized criminals and dishonest returns preparers, but it has evolved into a major enterprise funded by highly technical national and international crime syndicates. So the IRS sees thousands of fraudulent tax scams each year, and the scams tend to rise during tax season and times of crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. So one thing the IRS does not does to alert taxpayers is to publish an annual list called the Dirty Dozen, and everyone can view this list on irs.gov by searching Dirty Dozen. So on this slide, you can actually see a few of the scams listed. First, we have email, phishing, and malware scams. So watch out for fake emails that look like official communications from the IRS or other tax agencies. These emails are often phishing schemes designed to trick the reader into providing their login credentials or bank account numbers and passwords. So don't click on the links in these emails. If you do click you might be taken to a site designed to imitate an official looking website with the goal of obtaining your financial information like social security number, date of birth, etc., which could be used to file false tax return or access your financial accounts. Then we also have fake charities. So criminals frequently exploit natural disasters and other situations like the current pandemic or any other disasters, and they set up fake charities to trick people into making donations or provide their personal financial information. We also have those threatening phone calls. Those are another one to watch out for. So scammers regularly call taxpayers, and they actually impersonate the IRS, especially around the tax season. So they claim to be an IRS employee and use aggressive tactics and threats to trick people into paying fake IRS debts. So the IRS, the callers actually use fake IRS names and bogus IRS badge numbers, and they may already know certain information about their targets, so the calls seem legitimate. So also they can alter the IRS ID phone number to make it look like it's really the IRS calling. So please don't fall for any of these scams. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Victims are told that they owe money to the IRS and that it must be paid immediately through either a preloaded debit credit card or a wire transfer. So just remember that the IRS does not accept any payments on preloaded credit cards or wire transfers. Also, victims may be told that they have a refund due, so the caller will try to trick you into sharing your bank account information so the refund can be sent to them. The call is fake and the refund is actually fake. So don't get tricked into providing your personal bank account information. So remember, scammers change tactics, so criminal impersonating IRS agents remain a major threat to taxpayers, so everyone should be on alert. Also, there's a number of scams centered around refund theft. So most refund fraud stems from identity theft. So once data thieves obtain taxpayers' data, they might try to file a false tax return and claim a fraudulent tax refund. So everyone should be aware that non-English speakers are also a target. IRS impersonators and other scammers target groups with limited English proficiency based on foreign sounding last names. So they threaten to bring in your local police, immigration officers, and other law enforcement to have them arrested for not paying. So finally, we have those unscrupulous returns preparers. So these are dishonest preparers that pop up during the filing season. So they promise inflated refunds by claiming fake tax credits, like what they have mentioned before, also education credits and the earned income tax credit. So you can always go to irs.gov and you can search for return preparer directory for tips for choosing a qualified tax return preparer. Next. So most data thefts begin with an email phishing scam. So since phishing emails are one of the most common online threats, it is important to be aware of the signs and know what to do when you receive them. So here are some ways to spot phishing email attacks. So emails will arrive in your inbox and they're going to look authentic. So it might match the style used by your company or an external business like a bank. So keep an eye out for these emails requesting any personal information like your bank details or login credentials. So if you think that the email is genuine or valid, or it's not real, just stop and please don't click on any links, don't provide any information, don't respond to it. So search online for the organization's information and you can contact them directly. So phishing emails come from fake addresses that appear to be real. So scammers can actually mask email addresses or simply change one or two characters of a known company. So if you only glance at the sender's emails, it may look real. So if you take a moment and you can just hover over the address to examine it, that may tell you that is from a legit source or not. So phishing emails are often poorly written also. If you receive an unexpected email from a company, but is written with mistakes, is a strong indicator that the email is a phishing email. So be suspicious anytime an unexpected email has an attachment. So clicking the attachment could install malware to your PC or your network. So even if you think that the attachment is genuine or valid, it's a good practice to scan it first using an antivirus software. So the messages in phishing emails are often designed to make you panic. For example, the email may claim that your account was compromised and you need to provide your username and password to verify your account. So this is a common tactic, and it works because you are most likely to respond quickly and without thinking if the situation seems urgent. So again, stop, think twice before responding. If you are unsure, contact the company directly to see if it's a legitimate message. So next, I'm going to give you some tips on preventing online identity theft. So first, don't respond to emails and that ask you for personal information or financial information, or click on links within the emails. So also, change your passwords often and keep them safe. Select like tough and strong security questions to verify accounts, and be sure to back up critical personal information on external media. So also limit the amount of personal information you make available when using social networks. So nothing is more enticing to a thief than knowing that you will be going on vacation and that you're going to be out of state with your family for a few weeks or so. So ensure the appropriate privacy settings to help you prevent social engineering too. You can visit onguardonline.gov or irs.gov ID theft, and also staySafeOnline.org for great information on protecting yourself against identity theft. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Odette now to discuss the signs, some more signs of tax-related identity theft. So Odette, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Some great information. Now we're going to look at what do scammers do with your name, your address, and your taxpayer identification number once they get it with respect to the IRS. So we're talking about tax-related identity theft. Most common thing that they're going to do is try to electronically file a fraudulent refund return before you file your own. Now, in most cases, the legitimate owner of the Social Security number will be unaware of the tax-related identity theft until they go to try and electronically file their own return. And what will happen is that return, the legitimate return, is going to reject because the IRS system already shows a return filed for that Social Security number. If you're unable to file electronically because someone else, the scammer, has already filed under your taxpayer identification number, then you'll need to mail in your return to the IRS and attach the form 14039, which is the identity theft affidavit. So the form is available on irs.gov, and what it does is it alerts the IRS that you are a victim of tax-related identity theft, and your case is going to go into the Identity Theft Victim Assistance Program. And then we're going to research and resolve the case. We're going to verify your identity and issue any legitimate refund and place you in the Identity Protection Personal Identification Number Program, which is an IPIN, which is just a 6-digit number that is assigned to you, and you need that number to file your return every year, and you get a new number every year. It's just another layer of protection. Now, the IRS also identifies the returns that could potentially be fraudulent returns. If the IRS believes a return is fraudulent and you could potentially be a victim of identity theft, then we're going to send you a letter advising you that we have a questionable return with your identifying information on it. The letter will ask if the return is yours. If it is your return, and this can happen because sometimes our filters are pretty sensitive because we want to catch any potential fraudulent returns. If it is your return, then we'll ask you to verify your identity by phone or online or in person. And the degree of risk determines the method that you'll need to use to verify your identity, so we can make sure that it's really you. And then once we do verify that it's you, we'll release that legitimate tax refund. If you advise us that the return is not yours, then we're going to clear out your tax account so that we'll be able to accept the paper return that you're going to be filing. And in this case, there'd be no need to file the identity theft affidavit because we already know you're a victim. Another sign of tax-related identity theft is that you may receive a notice stating that you owe additional tax or collection action may have been taken for a year that you didn't file a return for. You should immediately respond using the contact information on that notice from the IRS. There are instances where fraudsters will use your Social Security number with employers in order to obtain jobs, or they may apply for and receive taxable benefits like unemployment compensation from a government agency. The employer or agency would then report the income or taxable benefits to the IRS, and we would compare it to your filed return and send you a notice for additional taxes due because the income appears unreported. They basically used your Social Security number to work for an employer, and a W-2 is issued, and now it looks like we're expecting you to report that income. So again, you should immediately respond using the contact information on the notice, and you should also notify the employer or agency that issued the information return and explain that someone stole your identity and that you don't work for that employer or did not apply for the benefits. If you receive an email from anyone, including IRS imposters, asking for personal information, such as a Social Security number or banking information or birth date with respect to the stimulus payments, the recovery rebate credits, refunds, or any other schemes that's related to your tax return, then the message should be forwarded to the IRS, and it's the email address is phishing@irs.gov, and you can see that on the screen. And then IRS is going to review all potential phishing email scams that are forwarded to us. And as Nancy mentioned, phishing emails are one of the most common ways that the fraudsters are going to try and get your information. So we all get them. I've gotten them at my irs.gov email. I've gotten them at my personal email. So you really want to be alert to that. And then if you do think it is a fraudulent email that's tax related, then go ahead and forward it to us at phishing@irs.gov. You can also use the Federal Trade Commission's one-stop resource for identity theft. That's identitytheft.gov. You can see that on the screen. If a taxpayer experiences a theft of a tax refund, either by direct theft or due to a scam, such as an IRS imposter by phone, they should also contact the IRS's Treasury Department's Inspector General office. Okay, so next I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to talk about theft for businesses. So let's take a look at that. So that is going to be, we're going to focus now on identity theft for businesses. So we have some quick security tips from the IRS on what businesses should watch out for tax-related scams and to implement safeguards. More than 70% of cyber attacks that are aimed at businesses with 100 or fewer employees. So the bulk of them we can see for business-related identity thefts are aimed at smaller businesses with 100 or fewer employees. So these may be targeting credit card information, the business identity information, like an EIN or employee identity information. Cyber criminals, they sometimes assume that small businesses don't have the security protections for their systems that larger businesses do, which in many cases is the case. The IRS and our security partners, like our state agencies and our software providers, we highly recommend that small business owners review and implement the recommendations from the Federal Trade Commission at the FTC's Cybersecurity for Small Business at ftc.gov. You can see that on the screen. Has some great and easy to understand tips for small businesses. Really great resource. And if you go to that FTC website, this is what it's going to look like. You can enter the phrase in the search box, cybersecurity for small businesses, and you'll find a wealth of information that can help you be more aware of potential risks. Here are a few cybersecurity basics suggested by the FTC. So you can see them on the screen. Keep your security software updated. You want to secure important files. Make sure that you back them up either on an external hard drive or in the cloud. Make sure you store your paper files securely as well. Make sure you use strong passwords for all of your devices, including laptops, tablets, smartphones, and don't leave these devices unattended in public places. You want to make sure you encrypt your devices. You want to use multi-factor authentication. And many of you are aware of that. It's just another layer. Once you get into a system, it's going to ask for another authentication level. Like it might ask you, it might text you a verification code. Another great resource. Be sure to protect your wireless networks that are used to retrieve, store, and transfer federal tax information. Really important for that as well. You want to see, you can see publication 1075, Tax Information Security Guidelines, that has some great information as well. You want to have a security plan in place, and you can go to the FTC website, and you'll find some great resources on developing a security plan as well. And finally, train your staff to use good security measures. Businesses, just like individuals, can also be victims of tax-related identity theft. Thieves can steal enough information to file a business tax return for refund or use other scams using the company's identity. We have seen some business scams that involve COVID-19. We've seen tax-related phishing emails that attempt to trick employees into opening embedded links or attachments like Nancy had mentioned. And again, if you get any of those emails that you believe are tax related and they're scams, go ahead and send them to phishing@irs.gov. Let's look at one of the most common ways that businesses are attacked by cyber criminals. And that, as Nancy mentioned, is through a phishing scam. They appear to be from someone you know. It could be a vendor, a customer, or even the IRS. As Nancy mentioned, that was some of the common traits. They appear to be urgent. They ask you to take immediate action. The link, if you click on it, would take you to a site that looks very familiar. We've seen some that look just like IRS web pages. If you enter your username and password, it goes directly to the thief. If the scam includes an attachment, it could secretly download malware when you open it. So again, as Nancy stressed, do not open suspicious emails with links or attachments. And all employers should remain alert to Form W-2 theft schemes. In the most common version for larger businesses, the thief would pose as a high-ranking company executive who would then email someone in the payroll department and ask for a list of employees in their W-2s. And businesses often don't know they've been scammed until the fraudulent return shows up in an employee's name. There is a special reporting procedure for employers who experience this W-2 scam. It's found on the IRS's Identity Theft Central webpage, and it's in the business section. It basically involves sending an email to dataloss@irs.gov to notify the IRS of a W-2 data loss. So next, I'm going to quickly discuss some steps that the IRS and their partners, these are our Security Summit partners, are taking to help businesses protect themselves from tax-related identity theft. So we have, since December of 2020, we have been masking business tax returns to help prevent thieves from obtaining identifiable information that would allow them to file fake business tax returns. So only financial entries will be visible on these tax transcripts. All other information will have varying masking rules. For example, only the first 4 letters of each first and last name of individuals and businesses that will be displayed, and only the last 4 digits of the Social Security number, or in the case of a business and employer identification number, will be visible. We also have the form 14039-B. So this is similar to the one that we mentioned about the individual identity theft. This is the business identity theft affidavit that will allow companies to proactively report possible identity theft to the IRS. For example, if an e-filed business return is rejected. So you should, as a business, file the form 14039-B. If the business receives, if they have a rejection notice for an electronically filed return because the return is already on file for the same period, just like we see with individuals. If that business gets a notice about a tax return that the business didn't file, if they get a notice about W-2 forms filed with the Social Security Administration that the business did not file, or if they get a notice of a balance due that's not owed. So once the IRS gets this business identity theft affidavit, it's going to enable us to respond to the business much faster than in the past to work to resolve the issues created by that fraudulent return. There's a lot of great information on identity theft section, business section. The IRS and our Security Summit partners urge businesses to keep your employer identification number, your information correct, your EIN. You want to make sure if you have any changes of address or of a responsible party, make sure you send that form 8822-B to notify the IRS. And in many cases, the responsible party must be, if there's a change in that, you have to report that to the IRS within 60 days. Having the current information can help the IRS find a point of contact to resolve any identity theft and any other issues. So really important to keep that information current. So we mentioned that Identity Theft Central on IRS.gov a couple times. Great resource for information on tax-related identity theft. So here's the landing page on IRS.gov. You can find this by just entering in the search box, Identity Theft Central. And what will you find here? A lot of great resources for individuals, resources for tax professionals, and resources for businesses. These resources can help you avoid becoming a victim of identity theft, and then can help you if you do become a victim of identity theft or a data theft. So here are some things to know in general about the IRS. The IRS does not initiate contact with taxpayers by email, text message, or social media. That's not our method of initial contact. We initiate most contacts through regular mail delivered by the U.S. Post Office, but there are some special circumstances where the IRS may call or come to a home or business. For example, some of our IRS revenue officers and revenue agents may make in-person visits at a taxpayer's home or business, but even in those situations, taxpayers will generally have received several letters or notices from the IRS in the mail before they're contacted in person. And the IRS is never going to ask you to make a payment using a prepaid debit card or gift card or wire transfer. And the IRS will not threaten to bring in local police, immigration officers, or other law enforcement agents, as Nancy had mentioned. We're not going to revoke your driver's license or business license or immigration status. These threat tactics are things that scam artists will often employ to trick their victims. And finally, the service will never call or email you asking for user IDs, passwords, social security numbers, or other sensitive information. So here's some additional IRS identity theft resources. You can see some publications that we have: Security Awareness for Taxpayers, ID theft information for taxpayers, about the identity protection program that I mentioned. You can actually opt in to get an IP PIN to further protect yourself. And we have Pub 5709, which is to help you create a written information security plan for data safety, really good for businesses. And the last one there, the 4557, safeguarding taxpayer data. And then remember the Identity Theft Central on IRS.gov. Okay, so we're going to move on now and look at some information for the gig economy. And I'm going to turn it over to Nancy. Nancy, over to you.
Thank you, Deb. You did cover a lot of information, so hopefully, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat as we go along. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to open it up for questions and answers. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the gig economy. If you use one of the many online platforms available to rent out a spare bedroom, provide car rides like Uber, Lyft, or connect with customers to provide other goods or services, you are involved in what is sometimes called the gig economy. So the gig economy allows people to earn income by using technology to arrange transactions. So this could include performing like a rideshare service, like I stated, or or deliveries, renting a property, or selling goods online, or providing freelance work. So often customers and providers of goods or services are brought together through a digital platform or an app or a website. So there are tax implications for both the company that provides the platform and the individual who performs the services. So if you offer services in the gig economy, you must understand the potential tax issues that might affect you. So the IRS has developed the Gig Economy Tax Center to help you meet your gig economy tax obligations. So it guides you through common tax questions. Next slide. So right here on the slide here, you can actually see what the Gig Economy Tax Center looks like, and where you'll have the option for information in multiple languages. You can go on irs.gov and actually put in the Gig Economy Tax Center, and this page will come up. So there's also a short video, helpful video and options for gig workers and those operating a digital platform to learn more about managing their taxes. So I just like to highlight a few of the important tax considerations if you are involved in the gig economy. So taxpayer must report all income, even if the income is from a part-time job, a temporary job, or a side job. So not reported income that's not reported on a 1099K or a 1099 LLC or 1099 miscellaneous or W-2 or any other information return. So anything else paid in the form of cash, property, goods, and virtual currency, all that is taxable income. So if a worker is performing services in the gig economy, it is important that the worker is properly classified as either an employee or an independent contractor. So as a gig economy, because you kind of consider self-employed, you might be liable to make estimated tax payments. So I'm just going to go over give a quick review on tax payments, including estimated tax payments. So the United States tax system is a pay-as-you-go system. This means that you should have paid the majority of your tax liability by the time you file your tax return, or you may incur a penalty. So employees usually satisfy this requirement through a paycheck withholding. So if you're a self-employed or an independent contractor and you don't have taxes withheld from your income, you may need to make estimated tax payments during the year to cover your tax obligation. So estimated tax payments are actually due April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th of each year. So you can use the 1040 Form 1040 ES to figure out the amount of this payment. So also the fastest and easiest way to make your estimated tax payments is electronically. You can use IRS Direct Pay. This is a payment directly from your checking account or savings account, or you can use the Treasury Department's electronic federal tax system, which is the EFTPS. So you may also need to make estimated tax payments to avoid penalties if the amount of income tax withholdings from your salary or pension or any other income is not enough to cover your tax for the year. You can also help cover your taxes by filling out and submitting a new form W-4 for other jobs where you work as an employee to request to have more money withheld from your paycheck. So a paycheck checkup using the IRS withholding estimator can help you see if you should make additional tax payments to avoid an unexpected tax bill or underpayment penalty when you file your tax return. Next slide of that. Thank you. Here we have some additional resources for more information on the gig economy and worker classification. You can look at publication 5369, the Gig Economy Tax Center, publication 1779, which talks about the independent contractor or employee, publication 5520, how a business determines if a worker is an employee or an independent contractor, and also publication 17, which is your federal income tax guide. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Odette to talk a little bit about the IRS resources for small businesses. Odette?
So thank you, Nancy. A lot of great information. And I'm just going to very quickly go through some IRS resources for small businesses. You are going to have the slides for a reference. Again, I'm just going to go very quickly go over that. So let's start with our IRS website. IRS.gov is the official website, a wealth of information on here. Here's the home page, different ways to find information. You can go by the search box. That's the easiest way, and just enter in what it is you're looking for. For example, you can look up EIN or employee identification number, and you're going to see results, and then you can click on the links that you see. There's information for businesses. So you can see there's information on employee identification number, employment taxes, estimated taxes, as Nancy had mentioned. On the left, you can see that there's a link for small business and self-employed, as well as large business corporations and partnerships as well. That small business self-employed tax center, wealth of information for small businesses, so much information there. Things that are like the employee identification number for self-employed, independent contractor versus employee, preparing your taxes, filing and paying, a lot of great information. Stages of owning a business, like I'm starting a business, I'm operating it, or I'm closing, or changing my business name. We also have a lot of online resources, like our IRS video portal, small business events. Everything that we put in one place for small businesses is in that small business self-employed tax center. One of the links that was on that page that we just saw was the Small Business Virtual Tax Workshop. It's 8 lessons that you can just choose which one you want to view with as a virtual instructor. Just another way of presenting information, some great information there. Federal taxes, Schedule Cs, business use of your home, hiring employees or independent contractors, a lot of great information there. It is available 24/7. You can view it whenever you want in any order that you want. And it all is also, we have closed captioning available in 7 different languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, both simplified and traditional, Korean, Russian, Vietnamese, and Haitian Creole. So a lot of great information there. We also have an IRS online tax calendar where you can view due dates and actions for each month. We also offer over 30 e-news subscriptions on a variety of topics. Our e-news subscriptions are just sent to your email. I'd like to just briefly mention 2 that may be of interest to small business. The first is the e-news for small business. This usually comes out every other week, has some great information, hot topics for small businesses. We'll also include what's new for small businesses on the IRS website, different reminders and tips, any special news releases and special announcements that pertain to small business and self-employed. So that's a great email. Another one that's an e-news subscription is the e-news for payroll professionals. So it may be of interest to businesses that have employees. This comes out periodically as information is relevant. Just go to subscribe to any of our e-subscriptions, either e-news for small business or e-news for payroll professionals. Just search e-subscriptions on irs.gov, and you can see the listing of all the different e-subscriptions. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to talk about some IRS multilingual services and other resources. So over to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Odette. I know we have covered a lot of information, so we're just going to cover this quickly. Next slide, please. This slide here shows the IRS homepage, and as you can see that red arrow there, that points out to the location of the drop-down menu, which will take you to other languages that are currently available. So the languages that are available are Spanish, Chinese, simplified traditional, Korean, Russian, Vietnamese, and also Haitian Creole. Also, the information is available in Braille and in different formats. Next slide. The IRS also created a languages page. This page has over 21 languages that the basic tax information has been translated to. So taxpayers can choose from the languages listed here to get information needed to file their federal tax return and pay their taxes. Next slide. We also have the the multilingual information for social media. The IRS continues to increase multilingual outreach on his social media platforms. For example, the IRS has a lot of individual images and tweets in 6 different languages. You can see on Instagram, visit Twitter, Facebook for more information and great tips. Next slide. There's also the IRS YouTube channel. These are short videos where you can get a lot of information, and it's also available in Spanish and American Sign Language as well. So you can always subscribe to get the YouTube IRS channels too. Also, very important, the IRS also has an interpreter telephone line for those that need translation service. So the OPI, what we call it, is it's an interpreter service that brings a language interpreter into a telephone conversation between the IRS and an employee and the taxpayer. It's like a 3-way call. The OPI service is free. And it's available 24 hours, 7 days a week. So if you visit an IRS office, or if you call and you want to speak to someone that speaks your language, please request that you be put on the telephone interpreter line. Next slide on that. The form W-4, which is the employer's withholding certificate that we quickly mentioned before. If you need to change your withholdings, you can go on IRS.gov, and you can actually see the form W-4, which is available now in Spanish, Chinese, Simplified and Traditional, Korean, Russian, and Vietnamese. So for those that need to file a new W-4, if you need it in another language, it's available for you. Next slide. Also, Odette, I think you mentioned the IRS video portal, where we have recordings of previous webinars. They're also available in different languages too. So you can go on IRS.gov, IRS video portal, to watch any previous videos, or the small business workshop is also available on the video portal as well. Next slide. And last but not least, the IRS made available a new schedule LEP, which is designed so taxpayer can state a preference to receive written communications from the IRS. So this schedule LEP has to be filed with your form 1040. So you will have the option to check a box in the language that you want to receive correspondence in. So the IRS will take a look at your schedule LEP, and if you check any boxes there, it will correspond with you in future correspondence in the language that you check in that box. So, just remember that schedule LEP has to be filed with your tax return. So next on that, I think we're going to open it up for questions. I know that we have covered a lot of information, so now it's time for questions. You can either come off mute, or you can put them in the chat. So Odette, can you see if there are any questions? Or Teresa,
there is a question in the Q&A. This person is a disabled vet and needs direct help. Is this available?
Direct help is available. If the person needs to meet with the IRS in person, they can call and make an appointment. They can call the IRS appointment line, and they can meet with someone face to face if they have any questions, any particular questions or they can call the IRS at 1-800-829-1040 and speak to a representative that way. So Odette, you want to add anything to that?
Also, especially during tax season, we have our VITA sites, which is our volunteer income tax assistance, and some of them, are many partners that may assist in certain areas. So there could be some VITA sites that maybe would be more particular to maybe some veteran sites, some of our VITA sites, and you can just search on IRS.gov for that. But I think Nancy is right on point that reach out to IRS.gov and just go to look for the appointments the appointment number, and you'll be able to see if, and what they often try and do too is try and help you over the phone. So you may not need to come into the, to the office if that's at all possible. But if you do, then they can certainly schedule an appointment for you. Okay.
I do not see any other questions that have been posted. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up things then for today.
Okay. So Nancy, if you want to go ahead with our couple closing comments.
Sure. Well,
I'm sorry. Somebody else
Go
just
ahead.
said they have a question. Terrell, do you want to, we'll give you time to either type in your question or you can use the raise hand icon and we'll unmute you. And then while he's doing that, I've got another one. I'm self-employed and I'm head of household. Where do I find info on how to claim my mother on my tax return?
So you can find a lot of information whether you're I think being self-employed, it doesn't really matter in terms of, if you're self-employed, you would be filing a Schedule C, a sole proprietorship, which is on your 1040 return. So that's kind of just one component of your individual tax return, your 1040. So if you qualify as head of household, that would be a filing status on your 1040. That's all part of all the information that would be included on that 1040. And you can find that on IRS.gov, a lot of information on, qualifying for head of household. So a lot of good information there. And Terrell, it looks like you have a question. Did you want to come off mute?
Here, I'll go ahead and, choosing a tax preparer, where can I go with limited?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We do have information on IRS.gov. So I'm not sure if they mean where can I go with maybe limited, if it's limited English proficiency.
Here, okay, I just promoted Terrell. If you want to unmute, you can go ahead and ask your question out loud.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I was trying to type fast, and I know you guys is wrapping up. But the question was, with me choosing a tax return preparer, it was said I can go to an IRS website to obtain that information. Just trying to find a good person to, and then when I said limited, meaning like unlimited types of representation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Okay,
So-
great. So great question. Thank you for asking that. So you can go to irs.gov and you can just put choosing a tax return preparer in the search box. And you're going to get to a lot of that information that I mentioned. So that return preparer directory that I referred to, that's a searchable directory that anyone can search. And what's going to be on there is it's going to be listed on any of our credentialed return preparers. So those are the ones that have unlimited representation rights, and they have certain qualifications. For example, a CPA has to, pass the CPA exam. An enrolled agent has to pass the special enrollment exam with the IRS. Obviously, if it's an attorney, like a tax attorney, so you can search by particular name. You can search by, well, I'm looking for a CPA within 10 miles of my zip code, and you can search that way. A lot of other information on there on the IRS website too on choosing a tax professional is what kind of qualifications would a CPA, for example, have? And do I need a CPA, or would an enrolled agent be okay? Or someone with that annual filing season program hold? It's just the level of expertise that they have. So a lot of great information on choosing a return preparer, and also some of those hints that we talked about to being on the lookout for unscrupulous return preparers, those ghost preparers, and just what a good preparer should be giving you. As we had mentioned, making sure they're signing the return and putting their PTIN a number on there, and that they're not asking you to sign a blank return. And that they're not asking you, they're not saying, well, we're going to have the refund deposit into my account, all those tips. So a lot of great information. I hope that was helpful, Terrell.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. So let's see if there's anything else in here. I speak Russian, Ukrainian. Well, thank you. And she wanted to offer her services to the IRS. Okay. I know Nancy, if you want to talk about that with the over the phone interpreters.
Yes, the over the phone interpreter is a telephone line that if you need to speak, or you're rather speaking your language when you speak into the IRS, you can ask the representative to put you on the interpreter line. So they actually have over 350 different languages that they can provide interpretation services for.
So I think she might be, offering her services as an
Okay.
interpreter. Which is great.
I mean, we can get back to you on that. If you want to send me an email, on the next slide of that, our contact information is there. You have my email address there, Odette's telephone number. You can just make sure that you can always contact us if you have any questions, or just feel free to reach out to us. If you want to provide any services, just send us an email and we'll get back to you on that. And I just want to thank the Massachusetts and Rhode Island SCORE chapters for inviting us. And we hope that you came away with some good information to help you identify and avoid tax-related identity theft and help you file your taxes. So like I said already, please feel free to reach out to us, to me or Odette, and our contact information is here. If you also have any feedback or any concerns, we're always looking for feedback. So always send us an email. Any feedback about anything that you can think of.
Great. Thank you, Nancy and Odette. It's been a pleasure partnering with the IRS. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and have a good rest of your week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Take care.